Thank you so much for coming today. We're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our speakers that are here. But before I get started on all of that, I just want to let you know that if you're able to stay afterwards, we are holding a reception in the Pepper Museum. If you haven't been there before, it's a great opportunity to take a look at the Claude Pepper Museum and all it has to offer. I guess I don't need my water bottle covering my face. And that will be held directly following this. We're going to end with a little bit of Q&A too. We do have an opportunity to interrupt if you do have a burning question in the middle, but we'll also have plenty of time at the end for questions. So my name is Dawn Carr. I'm the director of the Claude Pepper Center. I want to acknowledge too Dr. Neil Charnas, who's the director of the Institute for Successful Longevity, which is another aging center here that is co-sponsoring this event. And Miles Taylor, she's not quite here yet, but she is the director of the Pepper Institute on Aging and Public Policy that is also helping support this event. And we are very delighted and honored to have our guests here to speak with us today. And you're going to hear all kinds of wonderful things. The reason we decided that we wanted to bring them here to campus is that this fall, the Claude Pepper Center, under the guidance of Suzanne, who you'll meet later, has launched an OMA, this program at Florida State, and we had a very successful first semester. We're excited to continue to build this here and engage in wonderful new opportunities that this program offers to the state of Florida and to our researchers here on campus. So I'm first going to introduce you to Elizabeth Lokon, who goes by Lika, and she's going to introduce the rest of her team, Meghan Young and Krysta Peterson, who are going to speak with her. This is a shared presentation. But the reason I'm going to start with Lika is actually being generous with her time and in her very first month of retirement, to come out of retirement, to come here to tell us about the program that she founded and designed. So when I was a graduate student at Scripps Gerontology Center, Lika was actually in the process of launching the original OMA program that you're going to hear about today. And it was beautiful to see it get up and running and now be wildly successful. And I can't wait for you to hear more about it. But Lika launched the Opening Minds Through Arts program at Scripps Gerontology Center. And you'll learn this is an intergenerational art making activity that is done with individuals with dementia. And it's been replicated in hundreds of locations that I think you'll hear a little bit more about today, not just in the United States, but internationally. And Lika is an artist, she's a gerontologist, she's an educator, and she has done all kinds of work with thought leadership on this intersection of arts and dementia and intergenerational service learning, which is also really exciting and something that we're very proud to now offer at Florida State. So without any further delay from my speaking, I'm going to hand over the mic to Lika, and she's going to introduce the rest of her team as well. And just want to tell you again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good students back in the 2006, 7, 8. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting us. Let me introduce our co-presenters, Meghan and Krysta.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meghan Young. I'm the Associate Director of the Opening Minds Through Art program. I was also a student at Miami University, and I started in the field in a service learning class doing creative engagement with people in nursing homes, and that's kind of what made me declare gerontology, made me do my master's program, and then luckily I got to start working full time, so that's why I'm here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Krysta Peterson. I'm the Assistant Director of OMA. Like Meghan, I was also a student at Miami and found OMA kind of later in my career there, and it instantly hook, line, sinked me. just to kind of give a quick story, I was in a community as an alternate for this program, working with a gentleman, and he was telling me the story of how he lost one of his legs. It was so moving. We connected. We have this, this bond instantly. I'm crying. I get up to leave, and an aide stops me. Honey, are you okay? I said, oh, I'm fine. I learned how Tony lost his leg in the Korean War, and it was just so special. And she goes, honey, it was diabetes. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. But it was, it's those moments that like things just click. I felt so close to Tony. And I just knew that I was going to be in this realm the rest of my life. So I joined the Peace Corps, but came home, started working in the field of aging, and then most recently started with OMA in January last year. So I'm on 1 year as Lika leaves us, but we're so happy to be here with all of you and hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Krysta, Megan. So just to get us started, how many of you know personally someone living with dementia? Okay, so not that many, usually almost all hands go up. How many of you have actually tried engaging them with the arts? Okay, few, great. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Basically, I will start talking about why we need intergenerational programming. And then secondly, why we do abstract art. And then after that, Krysta will talk about what is OMA, more detailed description. And Megan is going to share about the research that we've done. And then I think it goes back to Krysta about how our response to the pandemic, how we went virtual like everybody else. So that's the plan for this afternoon. And then we do questions at the end, or anytime you have questions, you can also just interrupt. So welcome everybody on Zoom too. I don't know how many people, Victoria, in Zoom?
There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 on Zoom.
Okay, welcome everyone. So I hope everybody could see and hear okay, right, on Zoom? Yes, okay, good. Okay, so let's start with the first question. Why do we even bother doing intergenerational programming? We're not even talking about art yet. We're just talking about intergenerational. Why do we bother to do that? Intergenerational programming reduces ageism. And this is significant because it affects a whole ripple effect throughout society. So let me explain what ageism is. According to the World Health Organization, ageism is the stereotype, how we think about other people, prejudice, how we feel, and discrimination, which is how we act towards other people based on their age. So ageism can be applied to other people who are older or younger, or you're too young to do this, or you don't understand it, or you're too old to do that. You're out of touch. Whatever it is, younger or older, it works. It's still ageism. And it also happens towards yourself, which is painful. We are discriminating against ourselves. Oh, I'm too old to do that. I can't do that. That's not, that's not how I should act. That's undermining your own potential because you feel your age there's something wrong with your age, right? So that's what ageism is. Why doesn't it work? Okay, thanks. So the impact of this kind of attitudes, negative attitudes about one's own age or other people's age on an individual level, it has all kinds of negative effect on health, on well-being, on cognition, on quality of life, on loneliness, on income. They can't work because they're too old. So it affects income, but it also shortens lifespan. Study by Levy and Kunkel and colleagues calculated that negative view towards oneself with regard to one's aging actually reduces by one's lifespan by 7.5 years. So it kills. So it's serious stuff, but you know, we know that racism, sexism, all of that is being talked about in society, but ageism is sort of the silent killer that doesn't get talked about. And everybody seems to feel it's okay to feel that way towards older people. And on an organizational, societal level, we get shortage of staff because people don't want to work with older adults. Geriatrician, so this is by 2026, almost 8 million unfilled jobs. And specifically on geriatricians, by next year, this is the calculation based on US Department of Health and Human Services. By next 2025, the estimated need for geriatricians is about 33,000 plus, but the number that's available is about 6,000 plus. So it's 500% short. It's complicated, finances, cultural notion of age, and all of that comes into play. But ageism is one of the factors why med students don't want to study and become geriatricians. A study of University of Michigan, 170 some med students asked, and only 4% said they would work specialized in geriatrics, 4%. That's why there's all this shortage. And ageism plays a role in that. And so when you have staffing shortage in the industry, in the hospital, and nursing homes, in society in general, you get all of this other ripple effect problems. Burnouts, unsafe working conditions, poor quality of care, and increased costs because of underdiagnosis, overdiagnosis, and so on. So it's very complicated and very costly, ageism is. So we do intergenerational programming, we connect people, younger people with older people, so that they can have a more realistic understanding and appreciation of what it's like to work with older people, and hopefully we can address these issues. The World Health Organization also said there are 3 strategies that work to reduce ageism. 1 is policy and law, 2 is educational activities, and 3 is intergenerational interventions. And the program we're going to talk to you about today addresses 2 and 3. It is an educational program that is intergenerational. And it's proven to be effective intervention to reduce ageism. So that's why we do intergenerational programming. The second rationale question is why do abstract art when you're working with people living with dementia? So before we do that, we just so that we can cover the understanding what is dementia. Dementia is a global symptom. It's various diseases can cause dementia, from Alzheimer's disease to Parkinson's to vascular dementia, all kinds of different things. But as you can see, this dark brown is Alzheimer's disease. So that's the major cause of dementia. And but it's not the same. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease are not the same things. You can get dementia from various diseases. Regardless of what the diseases that causing dementia, typically these are the symptoms that people share when they have dementia. They have issues with memory and anxiety, shortened attention span, issues with language, organizing thoughts, and then it's just taking longer to process anything, to do anything. So that's a general symptoms that all people share. And then these are a couple of different assessment tools to diagnose dementia, to test that people, neuroscientists use. One is mini mental state exam. That's 11 questions with 30 points and so on. But one of the questions is copy that. overlapping pentagon. And that's difficult. When you have dementia, it's difficult to copy exactly like that. It doesn't have to be tidy, but it has to have the overlapping square in the middle has to be correct in order to get the points. And that's difficult. This is another exam for dementia. Clock face drawing. You see the normal clock here, the normal brain. This is mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's disease. The numbers are still that are correct, but the proportions are not. And this is the late stage Alzheimer's disease. So given all these limitations, a lot of the things that typically people try to do as activities for people living with dementia, like tracing your hand and turning into a turkey, you know, like in preschool, or cutting stars or coloring inside the lines, all of that becomes very difficult. But if you do abstract art, it transcends all that limitations because we're looking at the strength rather than the limitations. So from a strength-based psychology, people living with dementia, they still enjoy social time. They meet their student partner every week. They get the same student partner. They become friends. They can enjoy and appreciate that. And they can be playful in creating art and mixing colors, making choices. All of this is possible, even though one of the activities I've seen is they look at the magazine, look at the picture they like, they tear it off and try to copy it. If you can't copy a pentagon overlapping or draw a clock, how can you copy a horse from a magazine? I mean, you don't have dementia and you can't copy it, right? So it's difficult to feel successful. So this is one program that finds a way for them to be successful. That's what strength-based means. We just start with looking at what they can do. So the way we do this is what we call the connectivity triangle. This is the older adult living with dementia. This is the student or someone without living with dementia. Somebody without dementia doesn't have to be a student. And then they have a task. And this task is what connects them. By the time you have this triangle repeated week after week, everybody grows. The person living with dementia can become creative, can feel more confident. The student feel at first I don't know about this. Going to nursing home is kind of depressing. But then, you know, and then they grow too. And they learn how to be caring, and then hopefully they choose to work with older adults living with dementia, and we can gradually address the employment problem that we have. So that's why we do the programs that we're talking about today. There are all kinds of studies that investigate the impact of the arts programming for people living with dementia. Basically, it improves their quality of life and it improves their health. When they are engaged in a way that is strength-based, they can have more memory, more verbal fluency, more relaxed, more expressive, less depressed, and all of this has been proven by various different studies. So that's the why, and now we switch to the what.
Okay. So what is OMA, why you're all here, or part, I guess? Opening minds through art, or like what we like to say is OMA. Like Lika mentioned, typical arts and crafts in long-term care communities kind of end up looking like this. I have young children, and so this is what I would expect them to come home from preschool with, which also I hate. I get pictures of like the coloring page that is colored in perfectly from my 2-year-old. And I'm like, who did that for him? He didn't do that. I know he can't do that. Same thing, you go into nursing homes, you see it next to their door or on the bulletin board, all these perfectly done pieces, maybe this wreath. Someone had to step in and complete the project for the person, or they like this one isn't colored. And what ends up happening in these situations is they know that they didn't do well here. We might say, oh, honey, it's fine, it's so good. Or maybe the jack-o'-lantern, they put the mouth upside down. Oh, it's so cute, he's grumpy. You know, that's not how people who have lived a whole life want to hear the work that they've been doing. So what happens when you can't do something? They're going to disengage. Now they don't want to come to the art activity. They don't want to participate. And you think, oh, well, they don't want to do it. They'd rather sit in their room and be by themselves. That's not the case. They just can't, and we're not giving them the tools to be able to participate. So the whole idea of OMA is to help them use their remaining strengths so that they can be successful. They're still a person, they're still there. We just have to figure out how to relate to them. So a big part is kind of changing our viewpoint on what makes somebody competent. Just because they can no longer communicate doesn't mean, or they can't communicate through our traditional sense of communication, doesn't mean they can't. They're still competent. We just have to find a way to engage with them. So what is OMA? Opening Minds Through Art is an intergenerational art program for people living with dementia, like already said, developed in 2007 by Dr. Elizabeth Lokon at Scripps Gerontology Center at Miami University. Replicated at over 200 locations throughout the United States, Canada, and Indonesia. We have over 1,000 trained facilitators, and since 2008, over almost 3,000 students and older adults have participated. So when I say replicated at 200 locations, like happening here at FSU, we train facilitators. Typically we see it, or I would say a majority of our facilitators are activities directors within long-term care communities. They come, they get trained in the program, and then they bring it to their community members. They recruit students as volunteers, and then they run it as one of their programming needs. And then so here, obviously it's a little different, but FSU is trained as the facilitators. They bring students, and then they go into a community and provide the service. OMA's mission is to build bridges across age and cognitive barriers through art. Lika, do you want to say that?
Queenie Ikioni.
Is linking the generation. So at Miami University, we have a connection with the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma, and the Miami Center on campus helped us put this together. We're working with them on our virtual platform that I'll discuss later, but that's kind of the connection there. But the whole idea, we build bridges across age and cognitive barriers by creating these relationships. So OMA structure is a one-on-one. Every volunteer is paired with one older adult, and they sit in a session, usually say a group of 10 pairs in a weekly activity, and then they create art like you see in these pictures. But the way we're building those bridges is by building relationships. The student gets to learn from the older adult. They realize the competency through the ability that they have to create the art. All the art is abstract, modern, easy to follow steps. Choices are built in so that the older adult can have full autonomy of the project that they're creating. When you go through the facilitator training, you're given 20 projects to be able to use, but we also teach you how to create OMA projects to move forward, to be able to, you know, say Suzanne has a real love of a specific artist, and so she can take that inspiration from that artist and build an OMA project around that specific artist. 16 years of OMA, so we have 3 programs, OMA, Scripps Avid, again, I'll tell you about that in a little bit, as well as the Creative Caregiving Guide. We have 14 articles that document the positive impact of OMA. I mentioned the 3,000 students and older adults. Outside of Miami, over 1,000 trained facilitators in 3 countries, 16 awards for innovation and quality of improvement, and we've presented over 154 times. So these are all examples of OMA art. As you can see, even if there's the same project here, they never look the same. They're all individual, they're all unique. They take steps and processes to get you through and really help people feel successful in creating something beautiful. We certainly have these moments where, you know, I don't know, what did I make? What is this? And we train the volunteers through through the whole, getting started, to talk about the art in, with value. So talking about the texture, the changes in colors, the composition, and we map the pieces at the end of a session so that the artist can feel proud of what they created. They see the value in the art that they put together. Again, very unique, all different, every project, so many times during a day, older adults are told what to do with their time. It's time to wake up, it's time to get dressed, put this shirt on, put these shoes on. But in OMA, they get to make all the decisions themselves. The volunteer is simply there as a support person for them. I don't know how to use this tool. The volunteer can show them how to use the tool, but not on the art piece itself. Next to it, where should I put this? Where would you like to put it? Do you want it over here? Do you want it over there? Never are the volunteers interfering with the piece. This piece specifically is called Night Chaos, and it was created by a gentleman. He was a physicist, won a ton of awards, very profound in his career, and he created this piece. And at the art show, he kept calling people over to it. Come see what I did. Look at my art. Wanted to show it off. And then at the end of the show, the wife came up to Lika and said, you know, he's won all of these awards, but I have never seen him as proud at this art show than any of the awards he's won in his life. So, you know, again, they're connecting to what they're doing. He had insomnia, and so hence the title Night Chaos. Like, you can feel this in his piece. Maybe he can't tell you what he's feeling with his difficulty sleeping, but he's expressing it to us here. We don't need to know through words. We can, you know. And then we end all of our sessions, or every year we host OMA art shows. And this is a really important aspect of OMA, to celebrate the creativity, the relationships built. This is a celebration. It's meant to bring people together even more. The artists come, the volunteers come, but then the community members come. This is a community in Cincinnati, and some places like the gallery on the walls will stay year round, and they change the pieces for the different sessions and as they accumulate more art. But it's a huge celebration. You can see here, this is actually where I met Tony, at this table, I think. But you know, we have food, we have wine, we laugh, we sing, we dance, we have an OMA dance, everybody's involved. And then again, you bring in the community and OMA grows. Oh, and I'm going to play a short video. Oops, you're gonna do it, thank you.
People with intact cognitions oftentimes try to free ourselves from the limitation of having to draw this thing that looks like that, you know? And when you are free from that, you can then bring into the abstract world more directly. So when the ability to express is impaired, they think the content is gone. And that's where the violation of human rights come in, because the human is still there. It's just that they are locked behind the disease. It doesn't mean that there isn't somebody in there that's trying to express. And so art is a sort of a channel. When logical thinking and verbal expression is impaired, art is still there for them to express.
When I see what I do, and I realize how it turns out, I'm beside myself.
Working with people to mention, learning more about it, not just via textbook and what you see in movies, how it's portrayed, I guess. It's changed my experience at Miami because now it's everything that I do here. So I don't really know what I would have done without this program. I think that being involved with this has has given me purpose on this campus. I work and I have friends and I feel like I'm doing stuff that gerontology has made me feel like what I'm doing is really gonna make a difference, especially at Miami, because I can be part of the gerontology club that raises money and I can help the residents of the community, and it furthers my, like, I don't know, drive to do that throughout my entire life.
Must be somewhere must be must be somewhere.
Too often people with dementia in long-term care facilities, everything's decided for them. They don't make decisions and it's too long, it's too confusing, and this is the 1 hour where they get to decide everything on their own. So choices are built in, opportunities for autonomy is built into the process, and then success is almost guaranteed.
There's no other experience possible, I think, that brings together two very different generations where they both benefit from interaction with each other. And it goes back to our core values of love and honor and how we interact with others.
You see the very authentic relationship that they have formed and just how incredibly proud the artists are of the work that they have produced. You see them leave in a completely different mindset than they entered that room. It's our obligation to provide as rich and a full experience for these individuals who are suffering with dementia as humanly possible.
The mission of the program is building bridges across age and cognitive barriers. So that bridge is actually relationship, and within that relationship, the foundation is love. People within.
Thank you. Just as a side note, so the student that was featured, I know it was a while ago that she graduated, but she actually went on to become a long-term care administrator. So it's kind of cool to see that, as Lika was talking about at the beginning. But now we're going to talk a little bit about research. I know one of the things that's really, I think, unique about our program is we have some data to kind of back up why do we do the things that we do, and how does it impact the people that participate. So in a synopsis, and I'll talk a little bit more about a little bit of each of these things, but it improves the well-being and mood of the older adults who participate, and it improves students' attitudes towards people living with dementia. And then students actually gain a liking of, and I'll explain a little bit more about what that means, toward individuals living with dementia. So the variety of ways we've collected data in different ways. So from the people living with dementia, it's important to kind of get their thoughts and opinions, but sometimes that's difficult. You can't really set a whole survey of questions in front of them and expect them to respond back to you. So what the research team did is they collected video data. They took video data and then looked at all of it, and then it came back together with their notes and made sure that what they were all seeing was the same thing. And that's how they found their results for that. They looked at live observations, so comparing OMA to different programming. And then we also use questionnaires, but they're very basic and easy, and I'll share a little bit about that. And then for students, we actually do pre and post tests at the beginning and the end of every semester to gauge their attitudes towards people living with dementia, but then also their liking of, and we also collect qualitative journal responses. So students write responses weekly that were collected for data as well. So those are kind of the different modes. I'm not gonna talk about every study that's been done because there, as Krysta said, there are 14 studies that were done, but I just wanted to highlight some of the major ones. So the first, the impact on the older adults, the video analysis, we're looking at two different kind of domains, well-being and then ill-being. So in the well-being domain, they were looking for social interests, their interest in others and in the activity, or they engaged in the activity, participating, and were they smiling and laughing and having a good time, showing pleasure. And then on the ill-being side, when they were analyzing the video data, they were looking for disengagement. Were they dozing off or staring into space? Were they angry or agitated, upset during the process? Were they sad or confused? So those were the ill-being aspects they were looking at. So what they found, they looked at 38 different participants in this video data, and they just looked at the art making session. The way the sessions are structured, volunteers go get their partners, come back, and then they do the art making, and they take them back. So that's about an hour process, but this was all just condensed into the 40 minutes of actual art making time. And as you can see, the top line here is engagement, the red line. So it's really, really high, and it starts kind of going down as the session goes, but that's mostly because once you're finishing and wrapping up an activity, it's kind of natural for engagement to kind of dip and go down. But if you notice, the pleasure is the green dashed line, and then blue is the social interest, the dotted line. Both of those increased over the 40-minute time frame. So as they were not as engaged in the project over time, they did become more interested in other people around them, and they were showing more pleasure in their and during their time in the program. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Perfect. And then as far as the ill-being go, they really found nothing that was, they didn't see much of anything at all. If anything, there's a small little blip at the end of disengagement, but if you remember, the engagement level went down, so disengagement going up kind of makes sense as you're wrapping up your project. So, but that's just on the video analysis. It's really fascinating to read some of the articles that have been done about the comparison of OMA with different activities as well. So we found OMA really does improve mood in a lot of the people living with dementia that participate. The last category I talked about at the beginning was this survey. How do we ask people living with dementia their opinion about what are you doing? Do you enjoy what you're doing? And so at the end of every hour-long art making session, we have a form. I don't have a picture of it, but it has faces and it has these questions that are very simple and easy to answer. We asked them their mood. How were they feeling before they started their art project, and their mood afterwards? And then we asked them all these questions about the art making process. Do they like talking to other people? How often were you able to do what they wanted? Their autonomy in the project. Do you like your finished project? Was it enjoyable? And then did you think your time was well spent? We asked these questions for a couple of reasons. One, because it provides interesting data for us, but two, it allows them to, again, give their voice, give their perspective. If we want to change something, we can. We know that they're not enjoying something, we can change it. So there's a couple of reasons why we actually ask them these questions every week. So as far as those questions that you just saw, these art making, socializing, autonomy products, overall worth, on a scale from 1, not at all, to 3, very much, as you can see, they're all 2.7 or higher. So they really did enjoy it, thought their time was well spent, liked their finished product, enjoyed talking to others, all the things. And then if we looked at the mood question, so before, which face on the left here, which face shows how you're feeling, and there's a pictograph kind of different faces. They can circle one, and it's about neutral, so 3 is neutral. but it goes up to 4.5, which is very happy on an upward sign of the scale. So we can see that it improves their mood as they participate. And then the impact on the volunteers, just briefly. So like Lika talked about, addressing ageism and how do we do that? And we're trying to figure, always trying to figure that out. But we can start by understanding attitudes towards and how they change over time currently. So at the beginning of the semester, again, we give them a pre-survey, ask them all the same questions that we would at the end of the semester and compare. So one of the scales that we use is the dementia attitude scale. And as you can see here, just based on that scale, 94% of students felt more positive toward people living with dementia. 1% didn't change and 4% became more negative, but 94 is a pretty high percentage of students. And then the other scale that we use is called the allophilia scale, which is used in different ways, a lot of times with minority groups settings. And allophilia means the liking of the other, so another kind of out group, different than yourself. And what we're trying to do here is not just reduce prejudice toward a group, not just kind of like, oh yeah, I can tolerate this person or that group, but build a genuine liking of, I enjoy working with, I admire, that kind of thinking. So what we ask questions, I don't know if I put, some of these are some of the questions, like it's rewarding to work with, or I'm afraid, I'm comfortable. But it's kind of like that increasing the social comfort around people living with dementia. So what we found with students who participated, this is 216 OMA students and then almost 500 students who weren't in OMA. Over time, the allophilia scale was broken down into 3 factors or 3 categories. So questions regarding affection, comfort and kinship, engagement, enthusiasm, and then overall their total kind of score for allophilia. At the beginning of the semester is on the left-hand side, the pre, and then at the end of the semester is on the right-hand side. So every category, all the students who participated in OMA, their scores went up, whereas the people who did not participate in OMA remained about the same. So that's just one, their allophilia, their change over time. And students, their liking of people living with dementia definitely changed over time. And then I think this is fascinating too. So with medical school students, as Lika talked about, we want to be able to build this compassion and this liking of in people working in healthcare as well. And so very similar findings from people who are actually going into this field, which I thought was really, really fascinating. So 33 students who participated in OMA and 19 who didn't, and you see very similar trajectories in their allophilia. And as I said, we also collect journals. So a lot of times we'll see things like this in the first week. I was really worried, I was anxious, I didn't know what to expect. It's a really sad place, I'm scared. But all of that goes away toward the end of the semester when they realize I found a friend. I didn't know I could know somebody that's older than me or make a relationship. Even if they can't communicate, I was able to build that relationship. So these journals are really fascinating and it's a privilege, I think, for me to be able to see that transition as I was that student myself. So I'm glad I get to kind of inspire others to follow in that path too. But yeah, all of this was just a really quick synopsis of all the research, but if you want to know more about our research, it's all on our website that we'll share at the end of the presentation too. So I think.
So obviously you can see that OMA at Miami prides itself on in-person programming. And we all know what happened in 2020. So we had to figure out what that looked like for OMA and our students and our older adults. So we made a shift to virtual programming. So starting off what we call virtual OMA. We had groups of students in classes and we were meeting online virtually, so we were using Zoom, and we recruited older adults. So here we kind of broke out from people living with dementia in long-term care communities and started recruiting older adults through the community, people we knew, like Lika's mother participated from Indonesia, family members, things of that sort. And we were putting groups of 3 or so students in a breakout room with one older adult. Every week we would go through different forms of art. So visual arts, poetry, storytelling, writing, things of music. We would give the students we would open the class with teaching them about the art, I apologize. So like something like music, like what kind of activities can you do? And we would give them examples to engage your older adult. Here's maybe 3 different activities that you could choose from. Go into your breakout room and engage with your older adult for about 50 minutes using one of these. So then they would go in as a group, they'd pick one, and then they do that with the older adult. And every week they were learning another program, and a lot of based off different creative aging programs, like time slips and OMA, of course, as inspiration and things of that sort. And what ended up happening, and we weren't sure of, was the impact was just as great as in-person programming. So when we all went virtual, we're like, we can't do this. We can't live this way. But I think we were all surprised of, oh, we can be virtual. We can still make connections. We can still get work done. And so we were seeing that with virtual OMA, that we thought we've got something here. We need to make this better and more available for more people. So from virtual OMA came Scripps Avid. So arts-based, virtual, intergenerational, dementia friendly. So our pilot launched last January. It is currently free to use. And what happens is we match 2 people from different generations. So right now the focus at Miami is Miami University students, and we're working with the Alumni Association and matching them with alumni from Miami University. They meet weekly for 1 hour, and you can see the picture here is the older adult on screen and then a younger adult waving hello. Here is an example. So again, the younger and older adult, they get matched, they receive a link. You can't really see it up here, but Aaron and Mickey get an individualized link. You've been matched. You both said that you are available Monday morning. Please communicate with each other to set up times to meet. Here's a link for you to use. And then they meet weekly for about an hour together using the same link every week. And then what makes Avid really unique is over on the right side here, this is one project, but there's actually a list of over 70 activities that they can engage in. Visual arts, storytelling, writing, poetry. So it's not like, oh, let's get on a Zoom call and, hi, I'm Krysta, it's nice to meet you. They actually have something to engage in, conversation starters. They can bring up this pair, they're best friends, and she always comes with her highlighters and her paper, whether he's ready to do art or not. So she always wants to do art, and that's not always the case between the matches. They're more than welcome to do art and not, but we give them the ability to create art and build a connection through the art. So to the right here is a clearer example. So this is tracing kitchen utensils. So they're all low tech. You don't need a ton of things around, even just a piece of paper and a pen. So we give them the example, we show them how to do it. We tell them how to do it, and then building the relationship, of course, is what we really care about at the end. So we have questions to engage them back to the activity. So something like kitchen utensils, I would instantly go into, oh, I learned how to cook from my grandmother. We always had a pot of gravy on the stove, not brown gravy, it was spaghetti sauce. And now we're talking about my Italian grandmother, and we're really getting to know each other at this point. So you're telling stories and building that relationship. So participation, just to kind of show you what it's looked like this past year, we've had just about 100 pairs meet. Again, the pilot in January ran from I'd say about February to May, and then we did another semester like September to December. And so you can see majority baby boomer generation, and then Gen Z, just based off of where we're recruiting and students at Miami currently. But I think that creates about a 30-year age gap between the two. And then satisfaction, just like OMA, we're seeing some great satisfaction. This is still fairly new, so we don't have a ton of data to report, but after every session, we do collect feedback from the older adults and the students. They rate it, so very satisfied down to very dissatisfied. They can leave feedback, they can tell us what they engaged in. And for the most part, all very dissatisfied is tech issues. They couldn't log in for some reason, their camera wasn't working, maybe their partner didn't show up. And currently, hopefully one day it won't be me, but currently anyone who rates Scripps Avid, their matchup or their meetup being very dissatisfied, they instantly get a phone call or an email from me. What happened? How can I fix this? And again, usually it's tech. So I've done a lot of just troubleshooting with an older adult. I can't get my video on. Okay, let's walk through the steps. Let's get you there. And then they can meet up the next week. And then very satisfied, you can see over 80%. And the 728, so I said that there were about 100 pairs, but we take the satisfaction feedback after every session. So adults and students are rating it every time they meet. So some quick Scripps Avid comments. My match is a great person. I'm grateful we got matched from an older adult. I enjoy meeting with my match every week. I think this one goes into, well, she wants to know about the younger generation, and then our time is so precious. I'm learning so much. There's a lot of students that introduce them to their parents. They'll go home on break. I want to, can we have a meetup while I'm home? Can you meet my parents? A lot of older adults introduce their spouses. We've had some matches meet in person in Oxford. I think it's really interesting, especially like Megan was saying, coming from being the student to seeing people progress through our different programs. The students that say, I didn't know I needed an older adult friend. We have our parents, we have our grandparents. That's all I thought I needed. And then I have my friends, but they're all my clique. They're all students. It's my sorority. I didn't know that I could actually benefit from an older adult being just a person that I hang out with. So just that click for students, I think, is really cool. And again, it's helping address the ageism. Maybe, even if they're not moving into the medical field, maybe they don't think they're gonna, engage with older adults in their work. In reality, we all are interacting with older adults. So by participating in something like OMA and Avid, we can make that easier and make those relationships stronger.
So this is the third program that we have. We have the in-person OMA, we have the Scripps Avid virtual and video chat, and this is for caregivers. These are caregivers, either family member caregiver or a paid caregiver, professional caregiver, who wants to introduce the arts in their daily routine so that they don't just focus on doctor's appointments and medication and all of these things that typically take over their day. They can go to our website and look at Creative Caregiving Guide. And this Creative Caregiving Guide was developed when we still had this program. This organization doesn't exist anymore, but when we still had the National Center for Creative Aging in DC. And that center basically picked all the sort of best programs in dance, in theater, in visual arts, in storytelling, who are serving people living with dementia. OMA was picked as a visual arts program, but there are all the other programs. And then together we were put in a retreat center to create a program for caregivers to infuse the arts in daily life. And the result is this set of lessons. And you can get that by going to our website and see the lessons that we developed. Basically, it's all free, everything is available now, and every lesson follows 5 different formats. first you center by consciously breathing, and then you do some singing and moving, and then you have call and response, which is like at church, you know, like you call and they respond. Like you do this kind of thing with your partner, and then you go into the creative process, whether it's dance, music, theater, whatever. And then in the end, you savor the moment, thanking the person you care for their creativity, for willingness to try something together. And all of that is broken into small video lessons that anyone can open and try without any training. Like to do the traditional OMA program, you need the training on how to do it. But this one is right there for anyone to use without additional training. So we've come to the end of our time. And these are all the different ways you can engage with us more if you are interested. You can become an OMA facilitator by going through training. You can participate in Scripps Avid, either as a younger adult or an older adult, it's up to you. And even if you're middle-aged, you can be paired with a student or you can be paired with an older adult, right? So as long as you're not an adjacent generation, you can participate in Scripps Avid. You can use Creative Caregiving Guide if you are caring for someone living with dementia at home right now. We encourage you to go to the virtual art show. You can see all kinds of artwork submitted by people living with dementia in Indonesia and Canada, all throughout the US. That's a pretty cool art show that we have it's a gallery, online gallery. So you can subscribe to our newsletters. It's only 4 times a year. We don't spam your inbox, and also follow us on social media. So we have this QR code outside, and all these links are on that QR code sheet. So thank you all for your time and your attention. Now we're going to go in the front, all 4 of us, including Dawn, and address whatever questions you may have. Any question? I can run it with the mic. Yes.
Hello, Bob Bickner. I'm here in the Department of Health, Nutrition, and Food Sciences, and I want to thank the presenters. It was excellent video, very powerful art and video message. But the questions I have are probably several. The first is the range of dementia that people have and the functionality that they have is broad. And so I'm wondering how you manage that through these programs.
If they have mild dementia, it's not a problem. But the problem is when they have real advanced dementia. But because it's one-on-one, and we train the students how to support, we can work with people as long as they can sit up. Some of them nonverbal, some of them cannot do anything. If they can hold an implement or at least be supported and hold something, they can still participate. So we go with the whole range, except the very, very like fetal position at the end when they're just bedridden, then we can't. But if they can still come out, we still work with them.
Have you tried with people who really aren't interactive and they become interactive?
Yes, so it's okay, I just keep talking. So when we go to a community, a memory care community, we ask the staff members for people that typically do not participate in activities. Because those are the people that are most in need of engagement and most difficult to engage. But we have this luxury of one-on-one with students that are trained and eager to try. So that is a privilege that we don't just want to work with people who are easy to engage. So we intentionally ask for challenging clients.
It seemed that your time points, I was wondering if that first time point in the graph, I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about yet, but it seemed like they were already fairly happy at the start. So was that taken before they walked in, or are they just happy to be there, or are they just people who are not the saddest people?
So the for the people living with dementia, the pre-score was taken by the volunteer after they first arrive in the art room. So they first arrive, they sit down, and that's the first question. So maybe they're already happy because they see their partner. You know, so that's why that's 3.4 to start with, but then they get happier.
And that scale, that 3 is a neutral face, so like a 1 through 5. So a 3.4, I think is what it is, you know, like neutral, even the face is just, it's like a circle, 2 dots for the eyes and a straight mouth. So they're feeling okay, they're there, you know. So I think it's hard to depict that 3, like it does look, oh, they're not bad, but.
Yeah, I think you addressed what happens if you're in between. And it did seem to me that it would be useful to have someone that's not really gerontology centric, that they would become more accustomed to the older individuals and the young at the same time. So it seems like you've already addressed that in getting those 3 together.
Both sides benefit.
Of course,
Back behind you.
What are some, thank you, what are some challenges that you have encountered when pitching the program to an institution?
Cost. The pitch. I'm taking the question.
Go ahead.
No, I'd like to do that.
So when we go into a community, we usually operate for free because our students benefit from it. But it's not a sustainable model, so we try to charge the nursing homes for our students to come and all these art supplies, and everybody complains about cost. So if it's free, they say okay, but if there's some, you know, cost for art supplies and things, they hesitate. So that's number 1. Number 2, we always ask them to have everyone trained before we even come in, not just the activity directors, but also the CNAs, the nurses, the dietary department, housekeeping. We try to give a mini version of what is OMA so they can all support. And that's sometimes difficult because, you know, they don't have time, or we ask activity directors to go through training. That's a 20-hour training. And they say, oh, we're short-staffed, we can't go in. We can't release them that long. So it's always to do with resources, time, money. But once if they don't have that resistance, they overcome that. They can see the benefit of this program beyond the hour of OMA. They see their staff providing more choices during snack. They see the staff offering choices in outfits in the morning. And so they start seeing person-centered care applied in other situations beyond the program. And that's a success story. And then they would do it again and again because of that.
I was just gonna say too, I think unfortunately, the arts are like the first thing, if you think of school funding too, are the first thing to be cut. And so it's challenging, like Lika was saying, getting that buy-in is probably the most important thing. And you have to approach it with the research, with, you know, this is what it's done, this is the data that we have to show that it actually works. So I think that's another aspect of that.
And we tell them that this is not just about meeting the needs of your clients now. It's about addressing the social issue and meeting your future needs of caring professionals who really understand your clientele. So we talk sociologically rather than programmatically, and that helps.
There's a question from Zoom. First, I said, thank you for sharing the great work you have been doing. Did any of your programs include or specifically target on immigrant populations? If so, how did they respond to the arts-based intervention similarly or differently?
The answer is no.
Yeah.
Just because of our location in Ohio, in rural Ohio, we don't have that many experience with immigrant population. So we don't know, not because we don't try, but we just are not located in an urban, diverse communities. But what we are trying now is the Miami Center, Native American population, older adults and Native American younger adults, we try to connect them. So that's one angle we could work with, because the Miami University is not in, is in Ohio, yeah, it's not in Florida. So the Miami Center is located in Miami University. So we try to work with Native Americans, and we just barely started with that. So we are learning, but we don't know.
You could speak about your time in Indonesia a little bit.
Yes, so so this is not immigrant population in the US, but I got a Fulbright scholarship to take OMA to Indonesia. And in Indonesia, we had to learn, because their perception and conception of dementia is really different over there than here. They think it's normal. Aging is, forgetful is normal. Dementia is normal. You get old and that's the way it would happen. So there's a lot of awareness raising we had to do. But eventually we were able to establish a program in Indonesia. A couple of universities participated, and one university included OMA into their medical student curriculum. And the other university included OMA in their graduate program in psychology. And once you have inside the curriculum, then it perpetuates itself, then it's sustainable. So it works. And they're alive and well in terms of the program there.
Hi, my name is Skylar Larmel. I'm a sociology student here at FSU, one of Suzanne's interns. And I noticed that you had opened up the virtual program during COVID to older adults who necessarily do not have dementia. As someone, my grandfather's getting older now, and I want to be able to connect with him as much as I can. How is that success rate with older adults who necessarily didn't suffer from dementia, but are still aging themselves?
Great question, thank you. So we have our students have been connecting with older adults, for the most part, not who they know. But we're actually this coming spring semester, we're starting with a family studies class where 30 students will be paired with somebody that they probably know. We're suggesting a grandparent or something like that. So feedback from students outside of family members, or I'm sorry, it was an older adult told me, I don't even have this relationship with my nieces. I know this student at Miami better than my own nieces, and I wish I could do this with them. And she was telling me we were on Zoom we were on Avid talking. I said, you could do this with your niece. And so I sent her a link to be able to connect that way. Not that you can't just get on, like a Zoom call, but again, these arts-based prompts, they give you things that you don't normally, like, what am I going to ask my grandmother about that? I think, we have this conception that we already know everything or we know enough. So these arts-based prompts really help you kind of dig in. So while I don't know, we're still connecting family members, it has been really successful and people are enjoying it just as strangers. And so if you'd like to sign up, we'd love to have you join us. And then you can send me an email and say that I'd like to do this with XYZ, and I can get you guys a match.
That's great, thank you.
Did you have another?
Yes, besides long-term care facilities, what other institutions have joined the program?
adult day centers, seniors, adult day center, people still living at home, they just come there for programming for the day and then they go home at night. So adult day centers have done it, senior centers, and senior centers are typically older adults don't have dementia. They just go there for activities, so we've done that. Also, hospice, we've done in hospice. Hospitals, huh? Hospitals. Some hospitals have like geriatrics sections. So just about wherever you find older adults, we've tried, but the most frequent is nursing homes.
I was just gonna add, we're working more on respite care initiatives, so more and more we're hearing from like Alzheimer's Association chapters, they want to be able to do programming for their clients, but they have caregivers, so could they split time and the care recipient goes one place and the caregiver goes another and they do OMA, so there's different models we're working with in that way, but like Lika said, mostly nursing homes.
And Alzheimer's Association support group, they've done that too. Oh, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of on the same topic. My question is kind of on the topic of like recruiting individuals. Like oftentimes I've heard a discussion with word like students a lot. How like do you or how have you thought about recruiting groups that are not students, if that makes sense? To like kind of bridge like gaps between multiple generations, not just some of the like Gen Z and boomers right now, but some of the other generations that like may not be.
We work with continuing care retirement communities, that CCRC, that has independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, and memory care. So older adults from independent living, they live independently, can be volunteer in the memory care, and they're the same age, but they have different cognition levels and abilities. So they build bridges across campus that way. Some people do it in churches, and that is more like community members of all different ages work with people who are living with dementia. So the reason we always say students, because we work at Miami University, so we're always thinking about students.
A lot of our facilitators in the community, so our last grant within the state of Ohio was with nursing homes, and they partnered with, part of the requirement was partnering with another university and on a not med school, but health related track. But once they're outside of that grant period or even outside of the state of Ohio, these facilitators are recruiting from their own community. So that's where we see a lot of, like I was running it with hospice organization, we had a whole gamut of age and, again, just because we're at Miami, we typically are using our own students, but high schoolers are involved. And just because it's adjacent generations doesn't mean it's not intergenerational at the same time. So still connecting, what I would still say an older adult with another older adult is still okay.
I have a question for Dawn.
Yeah.
What are your vision for OMA in FSU?
And it's a good way to end everything, I think. So thank you for the question. Yeah, I think that we have a lot of hope to be able to make this a sustainable program, to have an opportunity to help train additional OMA facilitators. There isn't any opportunity for OMA trainings in this part of the country. And that is something that I think we hope to be able to do. But I also see a lot of opportunity for the FSU community to engage in some different research projects that could leverage many of the great findings you have, for us to be able to think about how these kinds of tools can work to help reduce incidence of dementia for the healthier individuals, and also think about some of these caregiver tools that might be helpful. We have a lot of folks on campus, I think, that have a lot of interest in Alzheimer's and dementia, and a growing interest in the arts and art therapy. arts therapies. So I think that if we can get folks at FSU who might be interested in engaging on that, I think there's a lot of great opportunities. It's a program that I know so well, has done a lot for quality of life, for helping students learn and engage and become less scared of aging and older people. And it has a lot of benefits just across so many different dimensions that it's just really an honor to be able to have it here and to begin growing it here. And I hope that others can help join here at FSU. So thank you for that.
So one more thing while we have everybody here. Interprofessional education. So, for example, Penn State Medical School, they connect with the nursing department through OMA. So they put all the nursing students and all the medical students that normally don't have any, and some kind of therapies, all the different therapies, they typically isolated in their own departments. But OMA, if they go together to some community to serve as OMA volunteers, then they build relationships and they learn how to work interprofessionally. So that's another tool that you can use to build interprofessional connections.
I just wanted to make a plug for tomorrow. We are doing a OMA workshop at 3 o'clock in the museum. So if you'd like to make some OMA art, we'd love to have you come join us for that.
Yes, we would absolutely love to have you, and there are only 25 slots. So we want to fill every single seat. So if you can come, we'd love to show you. We had our first session this morning and it was awesome and lots of fun. And we have great photos if you want to see what it looks like. But we'll end here. I want to thank all of you for coming and hearing from our visitors. I hope you learned a lot about this program. If you have additional questions, we're going to be hosting our reception here following. So if you just go out through these doors and into the museum, you'll find you can smell the food and go that direction. So we have some snacks, some drinks, and time to visit. So thank you very much for coming.